You open the book discussing the differences between the French Revolution and the American Revolution. What are the main differences we should know about between those two?
Well, that's a good one. I like to say about the American Revolution things that irritate some people, and that is to say that the American Revolution has, believe it or not, a distinctly conservative thread running through it, in the sense that the kinds of arguments, yes, of course you hear some natural rights arguments, but by and large, if you actually read the documents from the time, the people writing those documents are talking about historic rights they enjoy as Englishmen. So that's a very different approach. It's that traditionally it's been done this way for centuries and centuries. And you, the British government, are coming along and introducing novelties. And we are against novelties because novelties hit at the heart of our liberties. We intend to preserve those liberties that we have enjoyed from time immemorial and that come down to us in an uninterrupted history. And so their argument was, we're not the ones coming up with the new ways of doing things. It's you. We're the ones who just want to go back to the way things used to be. Certainly back to the century and a half in which it was understood that colonial legislatures are where legislation is passed that involves our well-being and day-to-day affairs, and that includes taxation. So it wasn't that they said, hey, this philosopher came up with some really cool new ideas that we want to try out. So we're gonna restart our society from zero and build it up on the basis of reason. That was not what the American Revolution was about. But certainly as time goes on, in the French Revolution, that increasingly is what it's about. That, look at all this irrational stuff about, well, look at the French provinces. Like the lines are all squiggly and weird. Let's just scrap all that and make a grid, Let's make this thing rational, like the metric system, nice and rational. And so that meant, as time went on, that whatever was old-fashioned and old hat in the history of France really needed to go. So forget about commemorating the baptism of Clovis or whatever. Like, that's all gone. What we need is our philosophers to, in effect, think up a new France. And the new France that we're thinking up is going to abandon its Christian identity. So that means we're going to start the whole calendar all over again from zero, basically starting from the year we executed the king. And we'll just go from there. And why do some months have 31 days and others 30? And so that's not rational. Let's have 10-day weeks, 3 of them. And the 10-day week, of course, means nobody knows when Sunday is, and that's not an accident. Any streets that are named after saints, we're going to rename those. We're going to guillotine statues of saints. As time went on, we're going to make it a crime even to be in possession of a rosary or to be sheltering a priest who hasn't sworn fealty to the regime. Now, that doesn't have a whole lot of connection to historic France, quite to the contrary. Whereas so much of what the American argument was about their historic arrangement. And their argument was, these interlopers are coming in and trying to change that, and we mean to have the old liberties that we've always enjoyed.
I'm trying to get an idea of the heart of the difference between the left and right. And when I think of it, the things that come to mind for people who are on the right have the constrained view of the world that humans have a nature which is generally self-interested. They believe the iron law of oligarchy and oppose egalitarianism in general, and they tend to only support negative rights as opposed to positive. Am I totally off on that? Is there a real left-right distinction, or is there just freedom advocates and violence advocates?
Yeah, it's not just it's much deeper than that. I mean, that is a difference between people, but it's not the left-right difference, because I wouldn't say even when he was a member of the Libertarian Party, I wouldn't say Howard Stern was right-wing. I think that would not be descriptive. It wouldn't be helpful to anybody to say that. You might say that in some areas he favors nonviolent solutions. You can say that. But I could talk forever about this. I know there are people who say there's no such thing as left and right. They're wrong, okay? You could say that in the context of American politics, there's no such thing as left and right, because the establishment, the uniparty, is also similar, that to try to bother disentangling them is pointless. But that doesn't mean there's no such thing as conceptually the ideas of left and right. They absolutely do exist. The only question would be whether they're applicable today, but they absolutely do exist. So I would say that the right versus the left would come down to things like hierarchy versus egalitarianism. That would be one. So let's say, I would say that no right winger really has any use for the term equality, except in the sense that we all equally get nothing from the regime. That was how Andrew Jackson meant it. When he said equal rights, he meant we all equally get nothing. And it doesn't mean that to make you equal, we're going to give you some stuff. No. The equality comes in nobody having special privileges. That we can live with. But otherwise, so that would be one. Another would be maybe what Hayek might call constructivism. The idea that that societies are like tinker toys, that philosophers can just build them on the basis of abstract ideas. Another one would be the view of human nature. I mean, obviously, the left has proven again and again that it believes that with the right influences, human nature is malleable in a positive direction. We can make a better human being. We don't have to be satisfied with what we have. We can engineer a better one. Whereas the right's view is you got to take man as he is and figure out, given that he is the way he is, what's the best way of coping with this? Or the idea that we can stamp out, if there's wickedness of some kind, we can just stamp it all out. It'll all go away. And the right's view has been rather that various evils very rarely can be completely stamped out. The best you can do is kind of hem them in, try to control them. So, you may want to eliminate some social ill from the world, but usually what you have to be content with is confining it to the fringes of society rather than trying to eliminate it altogether. And then there would be, I think, probably an assessment of let's say people's outcomes. Typically, the left will say that if somebody has a bad outcome in life, this is due to forces beyond his control. That society, institutions, whatever, it brought about this sad outcome, and so we need to change these institutions, or we need to redistribute resources to make up this unfairness to this person. Well, the right will often look at situations like that and say, this is just a case of the imperfection of man, that a lot of people do things that are self-destructive, and smarter people just cannot get their heads around that. Nobody would act like that. This must just be a random occurrence caused by the system, but it just isn't so. So I would start with that, and then from there, I would say private property, and I would say, in general, freedom of commerce. Because freedom of commerce is the flip side of we need managers to oversee economic affairs in order to prevent downturns and stuff like that. That's all nonsense. We would much rather have freedom of commerce than have a group of eggheads on a committee overseeing economic activity. So off the top of my head, those would be my ideas.
Thank you.
But also, can I say one more? Well, of course, it's my show. Okay, but one more thing would be, I would say on the right, there's much more interest in what is close and local and specific, whereas on the left, there's much more interest in the universal, in the global, in strangers. Whereas the right wing view really is that I cannot possibly care for all the people in the world or have equal concern for them, and so my circles of care begin with the household and then extend outward, and thus also extends my obligations to those people. So my obligations are at their height at the smallest circle, and then less and less as the circles go on. So the fact that somebody like Voltaire is all tears and pity about the earthquake in Lisbon, but he puts his own kids in a foundling asylum is exactly what I'm talking about. That those were the people he really had responsibility for. And those are the ones you see in his own personal conduct he, condemns to misery.
Thank you for getting into that. I think that really gets to the difference between the French Revolution, American Revolution, or Bolshevik Revolution.
Hey, you all, it's fundraising time again at the Libertarian Institute. We try not to do this to you too often, but business is business after all. I got a great group of guys and a gal at the Institute, and I got to pay them. So just go to libertarianinstitute.org/donate to pick your price and help out. We've got some great kickbacks too, books and shirts. Great ones. That's libertarianinstitute.org/donate. And thank you all very much.